How does the court use constitutional precedent to support the claim that students and teachers do not shed their rights to freedom of speech within the school building? In this lesson, you will learn to describe the Supreme Court's use of legal reasoning by analyzing how constitutional precedents are interpreted. Let's review. For this lesson, you will need to know the meaning of the word precedent, as well as its function in legal cases. Sometimes we are presented with tough choices. In the legal world, decision makers often look back to our nation's past and use a precedent such as a past decision, practice, or law to help them. The precedent is like a compass because it guides the path for the future and helps lawmakers reach their final destination. Most precedents are noted in footnotes of the text. A footnote is a string of text at the bottom of the page. We know there is a footnote when there is a small number in the main body of the text that indicates we should look for more information at the bottom of the page. This additional information provides us with the author's comments or a reference that supports whatever the author is discussing in the main text. For our core lesson, first you will need to highlight places in the text where a legal precedent is cited. Second, refer to the footnote. And ask yourself, what does the court interpret this precedent to mean and not mean? Third, ask yourself, how does this constitutional precedent support the court's opinion? First, I'm going to highlight places where a legal precedent is cited. I'm looking for phrases where the court says, in the case of. Here, I can see the court mention two cases, Mayer v. Nebraska and Bartell v. Iowa. These cases and statutes to this effect are described in more detail in the footnote of the text. When I see this tiny number, I know that I can look at the footnote to find more reasons explaining how these cases relate to Tinker v. Des Moines. I'm going to refer to the footnote and make notes about how this case is interpreted. What do these previous cases mean and not mean in the legal world? First, in the case of Hamilton versus the Regents of University of California, it was stated that the state may attach conditions to attendance of a state university. Essentially, this meant that public institutions can require people to follow rules that are specific to their own purposes. They have the right to create their own rules. However, it doesn't mean that their rules can conflict with a constitutionally protected freedom. The state can enforce or impose any conditions it chooses. So we cannot take these previous cases to mean that public institutions can disregard people's constitutionally guaranteed rights. So, how does this constitutional precedent support the court's opinion? I know that the court rules in favor of Tinker, stating that students should be able to protest peacefully within a school. How do these legal precedents support the court's opinion? When I ask myself this question, how do these constitutional precedents support the court's opinion? I'm going to refer back to my notes and interpret how they relate to the case specifically of Tinker v. Des Moines. To do this, I'm going to make notes on a separate piece of paper. First, I'll look at the fact that the court cites previous examples of schools being permitted to enforce their own rules. This develops the side of Des Moines. Overall, though, the court sees that these previous cases cannot mean public institutions disregard people's constitutional rights. I'll add to my notes that while they developed the side of Des Moines, the court eventually rules in favor of the students by proving that in this case, the school rule violated their rights to freedom of speech and expression. To return to our original question, what have we learned about constitutional precedent supporting the freedom of speech for teachers and students? Well, in the case of Tinker versus Des Moines, we learned that the court supports the claim that students and teachers are guaranteed First Amendment rights to freedom of speech and expression within the school building by proving that no matter what the case, no public institution, including schools, can disregard the constitutionally protected rights of the people which make up that institution. Their case is proven by analyzing previous situations in which the court defended the constitutionally guaranteed rights of U.S. citizens. First, we highlighted places in the text where a legal precedent is cited. Second, refer to the footnote and ask yourself, what does the court interpret this precedent to mean and not mean? Third, ask yourself, how does this constitutional precedent support the court's opinion? In this lesson, you have learned to describe the Supreme Court's use of legal reasoning by analyzing how constitutional precedents are interpreted.